Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Privajakachaja Astottara Satasishimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinya ki jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mathura Dham ki jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Thira Swami Tinami Namaste Krishnaya Prabhupada Sri Gauranga Shakti Bhakti. I would like to ask for a little, just a few seconds, about 30 seconds, so I'll be right back. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram. Thank you. Apologize. Hare Krishna. So, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, and the title is Vidura Approaches Maitreya. Text 1 and 2 today. So text 1 is already on the screen. So we'll read that first. Udavo vacha athate tad anu gyata vonsva pitva chavarunem daya vivamsita jnana gurukte mama pasprishu. Udavo vacha athate tad anu gyata vonsva pitva chavarunem Daya Vivamsita Jnana Durukte Marma Pasprishu Udovacham Atate Tad Adungyata Vomtva Pitva Chavarunim Daya Vivamsita Jnana Durukte Marma Pasprishu. Hare Krishna. Please chant if you feel inclined to. Unmute yourself and chant.
Uddhava vacha atate tad anujñata bhuktva pitva cha varunim taya vibhrimsita jnana durukchair marma pasprishu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Udbhava uvacha athate tad anujñata bhuktva pitva bharunim daya vibhramshita jnana durukaya marma pasprishu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. उत उवाच अथ ते तद् अनुज्ञाता भुक्त्वा पीत्वा च वारुणीं तया विभ्रंशित ज्ञाना दुरुक्तेर्मर्म स्पृशुः. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay. So please scroll up for word for word. Udavacham, Udava Uvacham, Udava said, Atha, thereafter, Ti, the Yadavas, Tat, by the Brahmanas, Alungyata, being permitted, Bhuktva, after partaking, Pitva, drinking, Cha, and Varunim, liquor, Taya, by that, Vibramshita Jnana, being bereft of knowledge, Durukte, with harsh words, Marma, the core of the heart, Paprishu, touched. Translation by His Divine Grace, C.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter, all of them, the descendants of Vishnu and Boja, being permitted by the Brahmanas, partook of the remnants of prasada and also drank liquor made of rice. By drinking, they all became delirious and bereft of knowledge. They touched the cores of each other's hearts with harsh words. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In ceremonies when Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are sumptuously fed, the host partakes of the remnants of foodstuff after the guest has given permission. So the descendants of Vishnu and Bhoja formally took permission from the Brahmanas and ate the prepared foodstuff. Kshatriyas are permitted to drink at certain occasions, so they all drank a kind of light liquor made of rice. By such drinking, they became delirious and bereft of sense, so much so that they forgot their relationship with one another and used harsh words which touched the cores of each other's hearts. Drinking is so harmful that even such a highly cultured family becomes affected by intoxication and can forget themselves in a drunken state. The descendants of Buddha were not expected to forget themselves in this way, but by the will of the Supreme, it happened, and thus they became harsh towards one another. Text 2. Tesham mayaya dushena Vishami krita chetasam Nemlo chatira bhavasid Venunam iva mardanam. Word for word translation. Tesham, of them. Maireya of intoxication. Doshena, by the faults. Vishami krita, became unbalanced. Chetasam, of those of whom the minds. Nimlochati, sets. Rava, the sun. Acid, takes place. Venunam, of the bamboos. Eva, asked. Madanam, destruction. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. As by the friction of bamboos, destruction takes place, so also at sunset, by the interaction of the faults of intoxication, all their minds became unbalanced and destruction took place. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When there is need of fire in the forest, by the will of the Supreme, it takes place due to friction among the bamboos. Similarly, the descendants of Yadu were all destroyed by the will of the Lord by the process of self-destruction. Just as there is no possibility of a fires occurring deep in the forest due to human effort, so also there was no power in the universe which could vanquish the descendants of Yadu, who were protected by the Lord. The Lord wanted them to be so destroyed, and thus they obeyed his order, as indicated by the word Tad Anugyata. Oma Ginati Mirandasya, Gyana Gina Shalakaya, Chakshu Umbilitam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Dina Bhutale, Swayam Rupakada, Mayam Darati Swapadantika. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Itapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupa Sagijatam Sahagana Ragunatam Pitantam Sijivam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Siv Shakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Paramami Hari Priya. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhi eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshitare. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachise Namaha. Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himadya Divacha Vishnuraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. So, text 1 talks about, well, the translation directly dealing with those Kshatriyas from Dwarka in the Vishnu dynasty and Bhoja dynasty. Translated says, thereafter, all of them, being permitted by the Brahmanas, took the remnants of prasad and also drank liquor made of rice. By drinking, they all became delirious and bereft of knowledge. They touched the cores of each other's hearts with harsh words. So there were signs initially that were seemingly negative, and Krishna was the one in Dwarka that informed the Kshatriyas, Vishnu and Bhoja dynasty, that they should go to Prabhakshetra because the signs are such that it is best to go perform some sort of sacrifice there, some sacrifices there at Prabhakshetra. So 560 million Kshatriyas went to Prabhakshetra. And the text before talk about, of course, they are very cultured, so how they offered prayers, what they did, what was offered to the Lord, and finally, at Prasadam time, the Brahmanas were also there, and so they gave to Brahmanas, they gave gifts to the Brahmanas, everything that's done right by a cultured society, they did. So in this point here, the Brahmanas gave permission for them to have Prasadam after the Brahmanas had taken first. And that is the way the culture should be, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. So then these Kshatriyas, they took the remnants of the Prasad, and then they also, a light liquor, as it says here, made of rice, they took that also. Then it had an effect on them. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that Kshatriyas are permitted to drink in certain occasions. And that probably occasion that was allowable. So they drank this light liquor made of rice. Now, it says both in the translation and Srila Prabhupada repeats it in the purport that in drinking, they became delirious. The simple term that we use here is they just became drunk. Hmm? The dictionary defines delirious in a couple of ways, but the one that actually refers to this is a an acutely disturbed state of mind. A person who is drunk with an acutely disturbed state of mind, resulting from either illness, which was not the case for them, or intoxication, which is the case, and is characterized by being restless, having illusions, and the incoherence of thought as well as speech. So this sounds like a very aristocratic way of talking about drunkenness and what people do when they're drunk. Now, it reminds me of my Kami days. I did not know anything about devotion. Finished graduate school, and there was a birthday party I was invited to. And so I'm sitting at the table. Actually, at that time, I was just brought up strictly in the house that liquor and beer and all those things were very much discouraged. Even in high school, it was discouraged. You could be suspended for drinking alcohol. The high school that I was at. So I never really got to this whole idea of intoxication. But this is a party. The people are there, the food is there, and the drinks are there. And this is tell a story on the side to see how people become when they drink. So this man, there was music playing. This man came out of nowhere and stood next to our table. And I looked at him, he had closed his eyes, his hands were raised, and clearly it seemed like he didn't know where he was. And he was the look on his face, and his eyes were closed, and he's down like this, and so we all started making fun of him, and so the people said, "Folks, he is not responsible for any of his actions. You have to understand that he doesn't know where he is, and he is just so much in bliss. He's lost." Everybody started laughing, but there were even situations that's even worse than that. And one situation, another party, again, this time, I mean, as soon as I began devoting all of those things to stop, I never went to those. I never was comfortable with it anyway. But for friends, they do that. So I was at a party, again, people were drinking. And there was this woman, very well respected in the community. And she started talking about herself and her husband. Things that she shouldn't be talking about. All of the different things in the house nobody knew about came about. Even what they do in the bedroom at night. It was very embarrassing. So it's like, intoxication, with your papa, sometimes we hear regulated principles. No gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no meat eating. Intoxication, just by not involving ourselves in intoxication, we can keep our dignity in public just by not doing intoxication at all. So how much that we are kept from compromising positions just because we don't do intoxication. So see, the Bible actually saved us because there were some people that were into intoxication. Some people can actually get addicted to it. So Kshatriyas are permitted to drink in certain occasions. And what happened was they were bereft of their sense because of the alcohol effect on them. Now, the effect of alcohol can be very, 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 very bad. From a chemistry standpoint, when the alcohol goes through the blood circulation and gets to the liver, there's a chemical reaction that takes place. The alcohol is changed to another chemical, which is actually poisonous. The immediate effect is for people losing their, equilibrium. But actually, it is in fact something that you don't want to drink. That particular chemical that comes as a product that the liver actually does to the alcohol chemical itself. So it's not dangerous. So a person that's drinking is actually killing themselves because they're putting poison in their body. The alcohol itself gets changed later on to another chemical. I know the name, but this is not a chemistry class, so I don't intend to talk about it. Mm? But it's very bad. It's very bad. Mm. So the Dwarka Kshatriyas, bereft of the sense, they forgot their relationship. They started using harsh words. Mm. This whole thing actually started because it was Krishna's will that the Kshatriyas or the those in Dwarka mm, finish their lives here on the earth because he himself was finished with his pastimes. Nobody could defeat the Jadu army. Nobody. And so, in order for him to go back to the spiritual world, he had to, of course, they can't go with physical bodies. So he planned for them to do this. It starts actually further back where Samba, who is actually a child of Krishna, saw some sages and he and his friends started to pull a trick on the sages. They dressed Samba like a woman who was pregnant. And then they took Samba to the sages and said, oh, dear sages, who know everything past, present, and future. Here is our friend here. And we want to know whether the child that will be born is a man, is going to be male or female. Now, they should have known better because the sages can tell a lot of things, including if you're telling something that's not true, because they can read minds. Mm? So then, annoyed with these young men, they told them, okay, so your pregnant so-called lady is going to give birth to an iron rod, and that will be the destruction of your family. And that's the response they got. They were very concerned. They took all the cloth from Samba's stomach area or belly area, and sure enough, there was an iron rod. So they realized that they really were in trouble, and the prediction by the sages had come true. At least the first part of it, because the iron rod there, and then the second part of it, the iron rod would be the cause of destruction of your dynasty. So they took the iron rod to Maharaj Ugrasen and told him what had happened. So Ugrasen ordered that the iron rod be crushed to the powder and thrown in the sea, in the ocean. So that was done. But there was a part that didn't get quite crushed to a powder form. So a little piece of iron was in there, it was eaten by a fish. And the fish was caught by a fisherman. And when he opened it up, and when he was skinning the fish and so on, this rod came out. This little piece of iron came out. Fishermen showed it to a hunter, and a hunter fashioned an arrow with it. The hunter is called Jara. Now, so that was to happen later, part of the pastime. Mm-hmm. So it's all planned, of course. The Lord is the cause of all causes, so he was behind wanting the Vishnu dynasty and the Bhoja dynasty to wrap up their times with him, the pastimes in Dwarka. So the powder that was thrown in the ocean washed up to the shore and then mixed with the soil, and there's some reeds were grown from it. And the reeds had particles of iron in it. So there's like, rather than just only leaves, this time they were fortified with iron, the particles. Mm-hmm. So that also happened. So that was there at the shore at Prabhashetra, where these Kshatriyas were. So the Brahmanas are taken, they've been very, very, very nicely fed, given gifts, and the descendants of Vishnu and Bhoja, they start drinking. And then they get very drunk, and they start hitting each other with insults. And some of the things Kshatriyas don't want to hear is one Kshatriya putting down the Kshatriya or the military prowess of the other. And the way it's reported, they started teasing each other, that this person teasing the other person that he's not that much of a Kshatriya, and this happened to you, and you couldn't do it, and therefore you're not so good as a soldier. You're not so, so then they hit back at each other like that. and it, making them more and more angry. Next thing they knew, they were fighting. They fought and started killing each other. Hmm? So Shiva says, drinking is so harmful that even a highly cultured family can become affected by intoxication and can forget themselves in that drunken state. Hmm? So, descendants of Vishnu and Buddha, they were not to act this way, but by the will of the Supreme, it happened. Now, Krishna, sometimes he uses ways that, to get to a point or get to a particular result that sometimes people who are not totally surrendered to him might think or might look at it and say, oh, well, it's not such a great thing to do. I mean, it's been talked about dancing the gopis at night, and the gopis are wives of other people. So many things have been said about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but people tend to forget that when you say you're supreme control, that means you are actually the topmost and everything happens by your will. That is the way Krishna's position is. And if we understand that, and we also know, and this is evident in everything that he's done, that the end result has always been good for either the community or even the person. The end result has always been that way. But the means of which it happened, we can, with our little, as your papa called our teeny brains, we can't figure it out like that. Hmm? So a person that is totally submitted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't have any problem with this. The Vishnu and Bhoja dynasty Kshatriyas were or could not be defeated by any other army. Krishna wants them to go back to Godhead. That's the best thing for them. It's the best thing for them. But to go back to Godhead, they have to leave their bodies. So Krishna planned for them to leave their bodies, and the only way is for them to attack each other because nobody else can defeat them. So that was the reason why things were set up that way. And they can't, in their normal state of mind, want to fight each other. So they have to kind of, Krishna had to take the brains off. They're thinking, the proper thinking of, and what easier way to do than get drunk. So then it happened that way. But the real reason is for the members of the dynasty, the Dwarka residents, to be able to be taken back to the spiritual world. Just like Krishna was present in the battle in the Kurukshetra place of pilgrimage, and he looked 640 million soldiers in the face and had them killed. Where did they go? Higher planets, better situation, spiritual world. So it's we that have to remember we're in jail. So when Krishna comes with ways in which we can get out of the jail, we should just follow that ways and get out of the jail. Krishna takes us out of jail. Krishna took the Vishnu and Bhoja dynasty out of the material world to the spiritual world. How he does it doesn't matter. I remember one situation, this is really hits home. At ISKCON, none other than TKG, Tamal Krishna Goswami. So he left his body. He left his body through an auto accident. So instantly he was gone. He was, what people were saying, he was actually even chanting in the vehicle when the accident happened. There were devotees that started talking about, but why did Maharaj leave, Krishna Maharaj did the body the way he did? And I remember my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Maharaj, was in Mayapur, and he was the one speaking, Alexa. He leaned into the mic and shouted literally to the devotees and said, it does not matter what arrangement Krishna makes for his pure devotee to leave the world. And everybody shut up. He screamed at them. Because we make too much of a big deal. And if we understand it that way, then we won't make much of a big deal about the Vishnus getting intoxicated. How else could they have left if they're so strong as an army? So Krishna is Krishna, and we just follow, and you see every time the end result is wonderful. The end results are always wonderful. Even to the point where some people take, they take a vow, like Bhim took a vow. I'm going to break that tie that you said Draupadi should come sit on. You do it. I'm going to break that tie. Well, he did break the tie, but it was against mace fighting. The rules for mace fighting, you don't hit below the belt. He did. Krishna told him to do it, be able to do it, and he did. And this is how Duryodhana got killed. But Duryodhana was to be removed because he was evil. So the ways in which things happen, according to Krishna's plans, won't always go according to the way we think things should be done. But we should remember that we are looking at rules that are in our jail. Who cares about jail rules? We have to go by them. But Krishna is the supreme. And so he goes by what he wants and his plans, and Narada Muni follows it, and Yogamaya follows it, and they make it wonderful pastime. Wonderful pastime. When the gopis told Krishna, this is wonderful dancing. Krishna, we don't want to go home. We don't want to go home. Not right away. Krishna granted. He made it possible for them to be with him for 4,320,000,000 years. One night of Lord Brahma. And they were with him that long. It's hard for us to even wrap our minds to it. But the next morning, everyone else thought that they just had one night's sleep. But that is Krishna. And he says in Bhagavad Gita, I am time. He himself is time. So he can change time any way he wants, but it's all about service. The gopis wanted to serve with Krishna in that rasa dance, to be present to satisfy him even more. And he granted it. So that is Krishna. And when we understand that, that's no problem then. So we know one thing, the state of drunkenness compromises the mind, and sometimes could even cause embarrassment. Krishna used it for them because he knew that in that state, the Kshatriyas would say things that they probably would regret, and that happens to the person who is drunk. But in that situation, he wanted them to be able to get rid of each other, the physical body, so that they could go to the spiritual world. And so he set it up that way. Even Jagaya Madai. They also were creating problems because they drink a lot. They were meat eaters, women hunters, dacoits. And in that state, this is a different situation, but still, the drinking was there. These people, Jagai and Madai. So Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur thought that it would be very nice for Lord Chaitanya's movement if they were able to save these two fallen souls. And that's why there was a crowd that was there, because these Jagai and Madai were causing commotion, and people were watching. And Haridas Thakur and Nityananda pushed through the crowd and then asked the brothers to chant the holy name of the Lord. What did the drunken brothers do? They became very annoyed. And at first, they attacked Nityananda Prabhu with filthy language and then chased them. Chased both Haridas Thakur and Nityananda in quite a distance. And then they couldn't catch up with them. So finally, they stopped. And in the evening, Haridas Thakur and Nityananda always would report to Lord Chaitanya what happened today in the preaching work. And the Lord was happy to learn that Nityananda and Haridas tried to deliver these stupid pair of fellows, as Prabhupada puts it here. Drunkenness. And the situation also, just quickly go to Canto 6, Chapter 1, text 58 and 60, is about Ajamil. He was a Brahmana son, well-trained. He went to a forest on order of his father to collect some fruits and flowers. And on the way home, he became, he noticed a Shudra, very lusty, fourth-class man who was shamelessly embracing and kissing a prostitute. And the shooter was smiling and singing and enjoying. That's how Jamil's attention was turned to them. Hmm? Both the shooter and the prostitute, they were drunk. And that's the point. They were drunk. Both of them were drunk. And that's why they were behaving the way they were. In fact, in the Bible time, it says that the prostitute's eyes were rolling in intoxication and her dress was loose. They just these are the kinds of people. And that is the condition which Ajamil saw them. So, point made, Krishna can use different situations to achieve something wonderful. But for us, in the jail, intoxication, you don't want to deal with it. It's just that straightforward. So Krishna used it. So Krishna, when it takes to Krishna consciousness, when we are in Krishna consciousness, in which we are practicing very seriously, then we can, in fact, withstand provocation created by sin. We have to take the process seriously so that these four regulative principles, we never break them. So, in general, we shouldn't really trust our minds, but we should trust our intelligence, because the Paramatma feeds the intelligence what the right thing is to and not do. The mind just accepts and rejects sankalpa, vikalpa. So before we act, we should think through everything we do. Stay away from intoxication. Krishna used it for a good purpose, but for us, it's a rule that we stay away from. So in the next text, the translation is, as by the friction of bamboo destruction takes place, so also at sunset, by the interaction of faults of intoxication, their minds became unbalanced, and then, of course, they started destruction, destroying each other, killing each other. Actually, Krishna came, Balaram was there, and they tried to break up the fight. But these Satyas were so intoxicated, they even started fighting Krishna and Balaram. They couldn't kill Krishna and Balaram, but they fought them. So the weapons were all used, broken and so on. So what did they do? They took the reeds that were at the shore, which had been fortified by the iron, so the powder that was thrown and then came back to the shore. And then, so they picked up these reeds, which was fortified with iron, and started hitting each other, just like swords, hitting each other. And they started killing that way. Lord Nityananda finally, Lord Balaram finally left. He left. Krishna was there a little longer, but, and then the Hanta Jara pastime actually continues like that. But not to go too much into the text itself. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that when there's a need of fire in the forest, then friction of the bamboos causes the fire. Very, 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 very thick inside the forest where people even can't go to or have not tried to go to. Fire can start. So it's not by people's will that fire starts. It can start with the friction of dry bamboo sticks, and then the spark causes that. I have actually seen a video of those who are living in the forest, very primitive lives if you compare it to the way we live now. And they don't have matches, and they can light a fire. They just simply rub two dry sticks together, rub, until the sparks begin to start a fire. And then they blow onto it, and then it gets wider. And the next thing you know, there's actual fire. And then they start that way, cooking with it outside. So it is definitely possible. And fires start like that. So the Yadu descendants were all destroyed by the will of the Lord by the process of self-destruction. Srila Prabhupada explains. So basically, all of that tells us, one, special favor is done by Krishna according to his will. We have to be careful in our lives because we are trying to get reformed. So there are some rules that we have to live by. Now, sometimes devotees are put in situations that are challenging. Mm-hmm. And then there was a lecture in 1969 in Hawaii. So 1969 was when Chipapa had come here. It was only about 4 years into this country. And 1969 Hawaii, there was a lecture, and then one devotee asked in the questions time, when Krishna withdraws that independence, we have some independence, we have a little bit of independence, but the devotee was referring to that independence, and it says, can we request Krishna to force us to surrender to him due to our conditioning? This is a question he's asking Srila Prabhupada. If we actually, with our independence, want to have Krishna take it and we be totally submitted to him, just like the Yadus were, the Yadavas, and of course, Krishna, just with his will, they fought each other in a drunken state. So, if a devotee just gives himself totally to Krishna and says, Krishna, take my independence, can we do that? Then Krishna Papa said, yes, you can request him for that. And he will, if you request him, sometimes he will force you. He will put you in circumstances that you have no other way but to surrender to him. And Sri Papa said, that is special favor. That's special favor. Then he gave example of himself. His spiritual master, Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, wanted him to preach. Sri Papa says, initially, he didn't like it. But he said his spiritual master forced him. So yes, he says, that's my practical experience. I had no desire to accept the sannyas order. He was around brahmacharis, he was around sannyasis, but he was always a householder. All the while, he was a householder. He hadn't actually thought of sannyas. But the spiritual master wanted it. He was not very much inclined, but Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj forced me. And he said, that is his special favor. See, when he forced me, he said, at that time, and I'll quote him directly, I thought, what is this? Am I committing some mistake? What is that? I was very puzzled. But a little after, I could understand that this is the greatest favor shown to me. As he said, I had children, 4 or 5 children. I left them in this sannyas ashram that I had to come to. And then he told his disciple, look at me. Now I have hundreds of children now. I've been in family, but look, hundreds of, and they were very, very, very emotional when they heard Shiv Papa talking to them. Said, look how many children now I have. And doing Krishna conscious activity with my children that I couldn't get my own children to do. So when Krishna, Shiv Papa says, Krishna forces us to surrender, that is a great favor. But generally, though, he doesn't do so. Some devotees get a little bit disturbed and say, oh, that means Krishna is going to take away all our material things and so on. Generally, he does not do so. But he does it to a person who is very sincere to Krishna service, and at the same time, they got a slight desire for material enjoyment. If you really, really want to be with Krishna, but then some things simply you can't quite get away from because you're addicted to something and that is material, then Krishna would arrange for that thing to go away so that you can surrender, but especially the way you really want to do. So, like Sri Prabhupada explained more, he said, this foolish person does not know that material facility will never make him happy. And still sincerely seeking Krishna's favor. But they're stuck in the material energy. So then Krishna says, all right, so this material enjoyment you got a little resource for, then I'll break it. Then the person will have no other alternative than to surrender to Krishna. But as soon as that tendency is gone, the material tendency is gone, Krishna rearranges for a person to have a stable life. It will be a different life, but a stable one where now the material energy is being used just enough to go on, and the person is actually fully surrendered, and whatever that problem was that they had, material enjoyment, has been taken away. So it is actually help that Krishna gives. Mm. And that's the way we have to understand it. One, it doesn't always happen that Krishna takes away everything. No, this is only for someone who is very, very serious and wants to be purified and has so many attachments that they cannot break on their own. They try and it is just too much. The mind will not let them. Then Krishna arranges something so that the real aim is to get rid of that tendency for material sense gratification. And that's why sometimes in that process, some things that's material gets taken away, and then a different situation is actually given to that person. But when they take away, sometimes people become quite morose. Srila Prabhupada, as he said, he didn't even want to get into the sannyas ashram, but Srila Prabhupada's business came to an end. And then finally went to Vrindavan, he started studying, he lived simply, he was away from his family, he realized, oh, I can do more things in Krishna consciousness now. And then all with the help, and the rest is history, how he got to the United States, and then, started this movement. And the wealth just came, book distribution, all the money came. And now he has so much money. And then he became the bank. His bank was Srila Prabhupada. You want to build something? Sure, I'll give you the money for it, but you make sure that you do whatever it takes in order to pay it back. So then he had all that lump sum money there, and what everybody wanted to do in Krishna consciousness, if they came to him and convinced him, he gave them the finances for it, and it got done. And then with people coming, and then contributions given at that particular temple, they paid back to Srila Prabhupada. And he would give other, devotees like that. And that way he built society. But he was sitting on wealth. There's no question about it. Later. So he had a business for wealth, material wealth, that got taken away. And then later on in spirituality, he got so much wealth again. Although he was living simply. That's why I call him, he was the bank. Hare Krishna. So much you can learn. Never doubt Krishna's plans. Never doubt Krishna's plans. Even if materially it seems like something we're not used to, Krishna is always a result that he's looking to do that is helpful to the person and all people or everyone in general that later on reads it. But he is supreme controller, and the style or the method in which he goes to get things done. The person that is surrendered shouldn't question it. Shouldn't question it. Look at the end result. The end result is always wonderful. How he applies, we are in jail, so our jail rules that don't really fit how things are done in the spiritual world. You have to remember that. Krishna is spirit, and he doesn't care too much about our jail rules here to do things and not do things. He's always for the protection and also the glory of his devotee. As long as we understand that, then the pastimes of Krishna will never give us any kind of bewilderment. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for coming, and then this is time to unmute yourself if you want to ask questions or you have something that you want to talk about, takeaways, realizations, then please unmute yourself. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Pariksit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Accept my obeisances.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Glory to Gurudev Prabhupada.
Praise to Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. Fantastic class. I got so much out of this class. I mean, it's really
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy.
Yeah. Thank you again. A question. Then maybe I'll have some more follow-up after that. I want to give everybody else a chance as well to ask. But it's my first question regarding intoxication. And this is, I guess, just kind of like a point of preaching when we get we may get a question like this. And, so sometimes people may say that, well, I understand, people going to get drunk, that's not a good thing. But there is kind of social drinking where, you're at work, colleagues go out after work. Maybe you have, some wine or a cocktail with dinner, or maybe you're going to visit family and everybody else is doing it. And, it's what's really the harm? I'm not going to go get drunk. I'm not going to, I'm not going to become an alcoholic. So how would you respond to that?
In my own situation, when I've been in, at work, there's a party that's arranged by the business, and I attended. I make sure that those who are my supervisors, as I just said, for my spiritual, section or group that I'm in, we actually don't do that, and so I'm not willing to. But then I will ask for an alternative. Please give me orange juice. So I'll actually request what you have that I know that give that to me. So I'll request it. And um it's not I don't feel any compunction to have to do what other people are doing because we know how Maya works. If we give in one time, there'll be several follow-up parties that you will give in to that too. And here, all next thing you know, we really are breaking the principle. So we shouldn't be ashamed to say it's because of my, spiritual beliefs that I am actually under oath not to, take these things. Therefore, I wouldn't say I won't take it. I would just stop there and I say, give me so and so and so substitute. That's how I say. So then they can do something for me. Then I also, can drink. I've been around my high school mates and so on, and they were all drinking and they were, stuff that I used to take before I came to the kind of food that I used to take before I became a devotee. They were all having that, but the understanding was there. I said, I don't now. When they knew me, I was the meat eater, eat chicken and everything. And later on, when we met, I was a devotee. I said, not even that I don't take. They knew I wasn't drinking, but I said, not even that I'm not going to take. So, you just have to give. I always suggest a substitute, though, that may be available. That doesn't violate this. And then say a prayer over it within the circumstance and then take it. Hare Krishna. Yeah. You had the follow-up question?
So I'm trying to think of what the provision would be for Kshatriyas being able to consume alcohol. Because it said there, like, well, in some circumstances, Kshatriyas were allowed to have alcohol. Do you know the reason why they would be allowed to do that?
Not directly. I know also that Kshatriyas are allowed to marry more than one woman. So that's also there. That the reason is marrying one woman that you're able to, you should be able to provide appropriately for your wives, though. That is there. They just don't marry just to marry. But the alcohol one that they are allowed to, I'm not quite sure about it. And I mean, some thoughts are in my mind, but I'm regarding them as speculation. That's why I don't want to answer. That way, you can be fighting with reckless. Okay, I'll put one out. You can be fighting with reckless abandon when you're a little intoxicated. You
Hare
can get
Krishna
angry
Prabhu.
more easily and therefore fight a little more strong. I think that somebody wants to
Yeah,
join in. Okay,
yeah,
go
Hare
ahead.
Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, so the reason why they take alcohol, it's given in
Mm-hmm.
explained in Mahabharata also
Oh,
that
good, good. That's good.
that liquor was the remnants of the sacrifice which was performed, and they used it for some reason in sacrifice, and that was the remnants from that sacrificial arena, and then they took it as a prasad, and they kept drinking it and they got intoxicated and everything started happening. So that was
Yeah.
the reason
Okay.
I read. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
So in Mahabharata, you're saying that it was used as part of the sacrifice. Is what you're saying.
Yes, it was
Okay.
the, I mean, remnants of the,
Yeah. Okay.
yes,
So yeah, when
that's
you
what
do
I read.
sacrifice, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know that part at all. That it was used. Um, because Papa said, as Dona Chajabu read that in certain situations, you're allowed to, Baba did not, and I mean, explain there. So thank you for putting that in. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. Still, we should just stay away from alcohol after having said all that.
Sometimes devotees, you'll hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm a Kshatriya," or devotee,
Yeah.
You hear that phrase thrown around a little bit. Maybe somebody has that nature born in them. Their conditioned nature is like that. I'm a Kshatriya, and so in Kali Yuga we're all Sudra. We're all born Sudras, and ultimately we are identifying ourselves not as a Brahmin, not as a Kshatriya, not as a Vaishya or Sudra, not as a brahmachari, grihasta, vanaprastha, sannyasa, just das, anudas. So even for devotees, we should never think that applies to us.
We are Gopir Batu Padakamalayo Das Anudas. That is our title. We are servants of the servants of the servants of the Gopis of Vrindavan, and that's it. We shouldn't try to put another label. We have plenty of time to be whatever our Siddha Swarup is back in the spiritual world when we get back to the spiritual world. So there's no point to give ourselves titles now. Go by Lord Chaitanya saying, we are servants of the servant. Gopi Bhatsu Padakamalayo Das Anudas. We have to be one thing that it's important to understand that not only are we in jail, but we are fortunate enough to be given the process by which we can get out of jail. It would not be wise to complicate it by doing any other thing. If Lord Chaitanya says you chant Hare Krishna, then you chant Hare Krishna. Remember, some people say Hare Ram before they say Hare Krishna? So Lord Chaitanya says you don't say that. Say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And if he tells you he's God himself teaching what it is like to be a devotee, a proper devotee. So if he says, be servant of a servant of a servant, then be servant of a servant of a servant, and not give. Lord Chaitanya didn't say anywhere in the Bible, in the Shastra, that you should be a Kshatriya, you should be a Vaishya. But those are there, but for a devotee, we're just servant of a servant of a servant. So that we can stay with the whole service mentality, and with that develop love of Godhead. We've been given a wonderful break. We don't have been 1064 rounds. So why should anyone want to complicate? That's what we have here to get back to Godhead. I wouldn't do that. Hare Krishna. Anyway, any other comments? Hey. You see you're unmuted. I don't know.
This intoxication is modern, this Kali Yuga, it became a fashion for some places.
Yes.
In India, of course, it's like that. If a person goes to a party, if he doesn't want to drink, oh, that man doesn't want to drink. That's kind of a joke or something like that they used to do like that. I saw so many parties, with my husband. I used to go. He was in private firm, and he used to go to, and a lot of people, they used to say like that. That makes, a man feels that, oh God, what is this? These people are teasing me. So it's not a right thing, but it happens.
Yeah.
And then if a person drinks, that is a status also. That's true. It's becoming, now in Kali Yuga, it's becoming a habit. And that intoxication takes, like you're saying, they will lose their control, and they will senses and everything. That becomes a lot of things to go other way. It's not recommended for Kshatriya, too many wives. Everybody is doing. Those things are happening.
Yes. For devotee, you have to be strong-minded in those kind of things.
Yeah.
You have to be strong-minded when it comes to protecting the regulated principles that we vowed to live by. We have to be strong-minded about that. Not that don't worry about
but it's very
what people
hard,
will think.
Prabhu. In a party, in a status, in a this thing, you go to, and it's very hard to be strong-minded and then stay on that. It's not that easy. I saw it. I went.
If a person does not think that they can, in fact, stay strong and not do those things that we know it's against the regulated principles, then there's no point going into situations like that.
That's true.
There's no point going there.
You shouldn't go to that parties at all. That's it. That's how
and
you
if you
can avoid.
don't go, they'll criticize you for not going. But we're trying to get out of jail. Everybody else is trying to stay in the jail. So that's the thing that you have to
certain
remember.
official things you cannot say. You're not going to the party also. You're not going to. They meet there. They do meetings. Oh God, those things I had. That's kind of things are there, Prabhu. Only Krishna has to stop.
Sometimes what we need to do is just pray about it. Even while we're sitting there, say a silent prayer and say, Krishna, I need to stay away from these kinds of things. This is the vow that I've taken. And just leave it up to Krishna, because he's in the minds, he's in the heart of everybody. That's Paramatma. The situation can actually, if you have full confidence in Krishna, he can change the situation right there and then to actually make it more favorable for us. But not breaking, I don't think it's a good idea at all to break the principles for anybody's, just to be nice for anybody's situation.
Not only that losing control or anything, you're losing your health also.
Yeah.
That is the main thing.
Yeah. There was, I forgot, a particular food item. This was something that happened in Prabhupada, that somebody offered him, some company offered him food stuff that he shouldn't eat. And he took it. I forget exactly which one. But then when he left, the devotees questioned Srila Prabhupada as to why he took that. He said it was your duty, he told the disciples, it was your duty to make sure that that doesn't get to me. I have to try to be nice to that person because to pull him into Krishna consciousness. But if it wasn't for me to take it, then you should have made sure, because it didn't come to me directly. You should have made sure that it wasn't put on my plate.
Those kind of mischiefs also happens.
Yeah.
Those parties. Not that I had enough.
It does happen, yeah.
Those kind of mischiefs also they do. That is not a good thing. If a person is not eating, just don't force. Don't cheat him, like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Always have substitutes. Always have substitutes. To everybody, it's going to be awkward. This is an important point. It's going to be awkward that people are eating, and because they eat meat and you don't eat meat, so you're just sitting there and nothing is in front of you. That's going to be awkward. That's going to be awkward. You should have at least a salad or something. You should, when they're eating, you should be eating. But not what
here in my workplace, they used to say, "Oh, you don't know how much you're missing. You're not eating. You're not eating."
Heard that before.
I said, you know what? From childhood, I didn't taste it. So I don't know what I'm missing. I'm not worried about it. I am happy with my own eggplant or potato or something like that.
Yeah.
So once I gave them tasting to my own vegetables, they realized it and they relished it. They said, "Oh, you can cook like this also." So there are ways are there.
Yeah. It depends on the situation. Yeah, that's very good points. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any other points? Last point?
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Pariksit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. If there's time, I'd like to come back to something important that I felt that you brought up in the class.
Absolutely.
And it's this idea that sometimes there's friction. Sometimes there's, from our material vision, a problem or an unfortunate circumstance. And it may even appear as an injustice. we say, well, this just isn't fair. And to be able to have the maturity of wisdom to be able to say that actually maybe Krishna has arranged this situation, one for a better situation that may come out of it, or for my purification for a particular lesson. I think that is in general terms, a very constant struggle for individuals, including myself, to realize that challenges, difficulties, even though they're apparently brought about by other people, and the circumstances manifest via other people, really that Krishna could be behind them for a much higher purpose. And we tend to go into problem-solving mode where, okay, something is unfair, something is a problem. Let me use my intelligence, my mind, to try to solve this problem. And sometimes that's needed as well.
Yes.
But at a certain point, we should also have to have that foresight and understanding through the wisdom of the scriptures about, is this really Krishna? Is Krishna really trying to do something here? And at what point do I step back and let Krishna work and not try to fight this?
Yeah, very important. Very important. It's in practically everybody's life. This happens where there's a situation where something unpleasant is going on, and you're looking at it. Krishna is the cause of all causes. Therefore, maybe it's meant to happen. And what should I do in a situation like this? Well, we do have, as you mentioned, our intelligence, and we will try, or some people do try, to solve it one way or the other, and others too would say, well, it's happening, it's probably meant to happen, and we just leave it. I think the middle ground for this is literally to first pray about it, because we can easily go to prayer mode easily when the situation is happening. Pray about it. Whatever I need to learn, Lord, let me learn from it, but also use me to deal with the situation as best as I can. So you give yourself the opportunity for Krishna to use our minds and our intelligence to solve to the extent to which Krishna himself would allow us to solve it. And at the same time, whatever lessons that we're supposed to learn from it, that will also come from it. In other words, this is actually submitting to Krishna. You leave the situation to Krishna, but Krishna has given us facilities also. So while you're praying, while you're dealing with the situation, or even looking at the situation and assessing, we also can put ourselves in the situation, put ourselves in a prayerful mode so that Krishna can use us to deal with that situation. Our lives as life of service, and service means action. Service means action. Therefore, to pray for the Lord to use our intelligence to act according to what Krishna consciousness rules say to do and not to do, that's definitely a good prayer and a request to be used. And so we can go into action, sometimes words, sometimes actual activities with our limbs and so on. That can happen. But we've prayed first to be used as a puppet for that situation to happen. So then when we're going through it by what we say, by what we do, what we don't do, and all of that is based on the prayer that we put to Guru and Krishna to help us in the situation. So in that way, because there's no solution directly to it that we know to use, and that's best. But we can pray for that solution to happen because Krishna knows best. So then we put ourselves to be used to deal with that situation. And that in that way, what we need to stay away from, not do, or what we need to act or say all of that is determined by Krishna. And we just go through the motions, basically. If you get what I'm saying, Hare Krishna.
I love it. I thank you so much for explaining that, going into prayer and being used by Krishna.
Yeah.
And sometimes we feel that we're the ones that are meant to solve the problem.
That's a mistake. That's another thing. Without prayer, that's a mistake.
Instead of being used by Krishna at his will and becoming an instrument in Krishna's service.
Yeah.
Because Krishna still may use us to solve the problem. But
or he may
Krishna,
not.
Or he may not. But Krishna, but we have to put ourselves in the position and the consciousness of, if I understood you correctly, to put ourselves in the position and the consciousness to be used by Krishna to execute his will, if it's his desire.
Yeah. Remember, back today, we'll get to it in a minute. Remember, the whole idea of fighting, there's a source for it. The source is Krishna. Krishna is the one that told the Bhoja and Vishnu dynasty to go to Prabhakshetra. They obeyed Krishna, and that's how they wound up there in the first place. That was Krishna's request. So things unfolded after that. And Madhvi Gaurangi Mataji has also told us that even the alcohol had been offered earlier. Foods and rice have been offered earlier. So everything is, Krishna is indeed the cause of all causes. If you obey him, then, of course, even when things materially seem to be going the other way, Krishna always has a plan behind it. And that's what we need to understand. And therefore, always when difficulties come, we appeal to Krishna first.
He shows this temptation, and then he will see how we react.
Yeah. But if we act in submission to him, though, then let's be a puppet for that. Then basically, the devotee is saying, use me. So then you don't have complications. At the end, you see that things work out well. The Krishna is that kind. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Those are very good questions.
But David was
yeah, very much so. Okay. Any final questions?
Bhakta David was asking something.
Yes. You already unmuted yourself, so go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obedience.
Accept my voice.
I was reminded of a quote I saw one time. Change is not painful, but resistance to change is painful. And I think it's really difficult sometimes, and it is wonderful, great advice, that it's difficult sometimes to discern whether you're being challenged and you're supposed to fight against what you're doing, or if you are fighting against something because it's the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I think it's hard to discern between is Krishna challenging me to see if this is what I really want, or is Krishna trying to clear the way and I'm just getting in the way of it. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Yeah, very good point that you've made. Still, the answer is the same, though. If we make ourselves puppets by praying to the Lord, we put in a situation to act according to what he would like, then even in that situation that you've described, we will have the right solution, only because we depended on Krishna for our own actions. Only because we depended on Krishna. Sometimes we see even a situation that is against the regulated principles, and we know it is.
Yeah.
But still, if the temptation is there, then the prayer should also be there. The prayer should also be there for the strength to continue doing or resisting, as the case may be. As the case may be. If we make ourselves puppets, anyway, let's just quote, I've used the word puppet a lot. Srila Prabhupada is the one that prayed that Krishna make him a puppet in America, because when he was looking at what he was facing and these people and so much emotive passion and ignorance, who's going to listen to him? Half of them don't even understand the accent that he has. So how are you going to get things across? So from a material standpoint, it looks like there's a big mountain in front of him that he had to deal with. But he said, make me a puppet. Make me a puppet. He requested 3 times. Make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. So what he did, he always wanted the Lord to use him. And that is a solution for devotees generally. If we are in the consciousness of Lord, please use me in this situation as best as you want. Myself, my mind, my body, all of that. Act in a timely way. And Krishna can just not only have us do what needs to be done or not do what needs not to be done or does not need to be done, or even putting people in around us in a very timely way for the whole thing to unfold the way he wants it to happen. I've seen that in my own life, so I know that for a fact. Yeah, to unfold. I mean, I can tell you stories. In situations where I could have been embarrassed very badly, I prayed about it, and then went in a situation that changed totally. I didn't have to be embarrassed. So many things happened. So before I became devotee, I already knew the power of prayer. You ask, and make yourself vulnerable to the Lord. Ask, just use me. Now, actually, Papa uses the word puppet. That's why we use puppet. But we make ourselves vulnerable like that. And say, okay, so this body is yours, this mind is yours, this is the situation we're in, and you use me for your own glory in the end. Like that. So prayer is powerful. Hare Krishna. Okay. So I think we can end here. Hare Krishna. Unless somebody has.
No, thank you very much for your class. I also learned a lot. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Krishna's mercy.
Nice class. And a lot of things to realize.
Vanchakapataruvyasya kripasindhuveva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Have a nice, wonderful.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.